Rise of Skywalker is very much not for me. And there are two major reasons why. It's not for me because it suffers all of the problems I usually have with films directed by JJ Abrams, and it's not for me as the conclusion of an ongoing story, specifically as a sequel to The Last Jedi. This is going to be a spoiler-heavy video, so fair warning about that.
Alright, let me set up the context very briefly and then we'll get into it. We're going to be responding to Just Right's video on Rise of Skywalker. Now, earlier in that video, he basically honed in on JJ just being too fast, not having any quiet moments, right, having a very kinetic narrative and the problems with that. And then he's going to add additional reasons why Rise of Skywalker is bad, and we're going to react to those. So again, fair warning, I'm taking the first half of what Sage says, so it might be a little distortive. In addition, as he says, this is heavily spoiled, so spoilers ahead.
The movie goes out of its way to start depicting the characters as aggressively straight. Both characters sort of get girlfriends in this movie. Poe meets up with old flame Zori Bliss, and Finn bonds with Jannah. Now, if you were thinking during my whole no scenes, just plot spiel, but what about that scene with Poe and Zori up on the rooftop? Or that one between Finn and Jannah where they talk about defecting from the First Order? Yes, those are some of the only times the movie slows down long enough to have two characters talk about their feelings. But given how little either character is in the movie, it's basically wasted time. It's time that could have been spent developing Poe and Finn's relationship. They spend the whole movie together but barely actually interact in a way that develops coherently over the course of the story. So no, this isn't just about appeasing fans who shipped the characters. And no, it's not just about having more diversity in the film, although it is also about that. But I think it would have made this specific movie a tangibly better movie, a stronger story. I mean, can you imagine this movie's version of this scene, but it's Finn and Poe? It's fresh material for a Star Wars story, and it would have been thrilling to see these characters explore those emotions, and at the very least, just have something to do during the film. Instead, there's a blink and you'll miss it same-sex kiss at the end between two characters who you don't know that's been edited out for Singapore. What a waste of two great characters and two incredible performers. Part 5. Rose. After the release of The Last Jedi, an incredible amount of racist and sexist vitriol was directed against Kelly Marie Tran, who plays the character of Rose Tico. So much so that she eventually deleted her social media accounts and wrote an op-ed in the New York Times about how the barrage of abuse affected her. Rose was a main character in the last film, and a character I wanted to see more of. I literally jump with joy every time I see her. But here she is relegated to basically being an extra. In total, she appears on screen for 1 minute and 16 seconds. The most charitable interpretation of this is that JJ was just uninterested in her as a character, or that he didn't know what to do with her, or that they thought the audiences didn't like her for reasons that weren't bigoted. But you can't make that decision without knowing about the bigoted nature of the backlash against Kelly Marie Tran. So it just feels like Disney has shamelessly capitulated to the worst part of the audience, and that part of the audience will certainly interpret it that way. It sucks, and I hate it.
Alright, so there's a lot going on here because he's packing positions, sort of embedding them in one another. So let's try to be analytic and separate them. So on the girlfriend issue, that I think is rock solid. I don't think there's really any doubt that they very clearly just wanted to have Zori and Jannah specifically to signal to the audience that they are, not homosexual. So I think that is very well established, and that's a very clear interpretation of that and what function those characters play. But now he's adding certain other things which I think is more problematic. Now he's saying that, well, we should be spending more time on Finn and Poe because, we're not spending that much time on Zori or Jannah anyway, so it seems very logical, right? He's making it sound very logical position, but it's sort of like, well, wait a minute. And I understand some Star Wars fans are consistent and don't like him, but this is kind of like Boba, right? Well, we don't spend that much time with Boba. He's only on screen for about, a couple of minutes? That's not a character. Does not matter. A character can spend very little time on screen. They could still do enough to be a very distinct character. So this just comes off as a pure preference on his part. And the way he makes it sound is if this is the only kind of route they could have taken. I can think of a number of different narratives they could have done that would have been interesting with the characters. I mean, one of them is that maybe Finn goes crazy because of his trauma. Rey tries to save him and abandons the resistance. Poe gets mad. He saves everybody by himself, but exiles them, and, the relationship is one of their, breaking up the friendship. So, again, there are other possibilities. So, the way he makes it sound, and I realize that is a large part why people do not like Just Right, is that his tone of voice really, really annoys them. I myself, I'm not going to lie, I like Sage, and I'm well aware he makes some blunders and some real problems and mistakes, but that's an emotive kind of reaction. But it does seem like he is kind of leaning in on, it's just obvious to me. Well, that's nice. It's obvious to you, but that's not an argument. We need a little bit more information. And I'm going to be in the really unpopular position of defending JJ, because he admits basically his thesis is completely wrong. He says, oh, yes, there are some quiet moments with Jannah and Zori, but there's just a few of them. No. Just as an empirical issue, that is simply not true. We have Rey and Luke. We've got Kylo and Han. Right? Even Sidious has a quiet moment or two. So just empirically, I could list quite a few quiet moments within Rise of Skywalker. Right? So if I start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because he used the word some. There are just some moments. Well, okay, what does some mean? Some is ambiguous. You need to give us a little bit more information here. Because this, at best, is sort of just, you're admitting you're wrong, but saying, well, it doesn't matter, because I'm still right. Which, again, feels a little bit like Maulerish, that, okay, the detail is wrong, but I'm still right. But the detail is the argument, right? This isn't like the compulsory girlfriend issue, because there are just very few, alternatives to the interpretation. It seems pretty clear what they wanted to do with Zori and Jannah in terms of the relationship with Finn and Poe. But the quiet moments, there are quite a few of them that I counted. So again, we need a little bit more information. This just feels like a preference, which is very, again, like the other one. But, it's a little ambiguous. And finally, we get to Rose. The Rose thing is actually two different issues. The politics of fan reaction versus what she is as a character. And I want to be, again, brutal to both. Okay, Mauler admits he does not like Rose, and Just Right admits he does like Rose. So they both come out very clear. They do not like the character. But Mauler maintains she's just not a good character. Now, I don't believe him for 1 second, and I'm still not getting why she's Shrek. Why he uses that term. Is it a toxic response? Yes. But Just is also adding it's a racist response. In some cases it is, but in terms of Mauler, I cannot say that. So it may be generally true, but in specific cases, at least in the information I have, it could be legitimately, listen, just some people did not like her character. But he's correct. Just factually, we went from a major character to a minor character without any explanation. So the nicest we can say with JJ is that he just didn't see what was interesting with Rose. And I agree, that's a paper-thin argument, and it's perfectly legitimate to think something else is occurring, but we need a little bit more information. So this is more of a question mark. And again, I agree, Rose is very energetic, and I wanted to see more of her because we need to explore her on her own. We didn't get that, but we got to deal with the film that we have, and we have to at least allow good intentions. So it's strange, and we know factually outside the production something happened, but within the story, we'll just say, I guess, for whatever reason, Rose thinks, sticking close to the home base is her best contribution. And she does do some things at the end, so it's not a total washout. But, yeah, it's very suspicious. Very suspicious. So to recap, okay, he has one solid argument. I think that was good at the beginning. But the two other ones come off very close to just preferences. And the usual, it's just obvious to me. Well, maybe so, but those appear to be very weak arguments. The last one is a big question mark. Being fair to both sides, it could just be, listen, Rose just does not work for certain audiences for character reasons. Do I believe a lot of these people? No, I don't think I do. But legitimately, in terms of the argument, we're going to need a little bit more information than just, for Sage, he's very energetic. All right, this has been a response to Just Right's takedown of Rise of Skywalker. If you like the content, please hit the like button and/or subscribe. Please comment below. I'm going to be setting up a Patreon account. Whatever you can contribute, please do so. I realize people probably expected more of a mauling, no pun intended, but I will be very critical of Just in this and other videos. All right, thanks for listening.